and beyond. And for those of you watching on RootShare for the first time, welcome. My name is Jordan Jones. I am your host here of Boilers and Beyond. And for those of you who have been with me from the start of this podcast, you know how happy I am to say that it's finally game week. We have Purdue football this weekend. The Boilermakers play host to the Iowa Hawkeyes Saturday afternoon on 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff on the Big Ten Network. I cannot wait for this game. We're going to break it all down here for you today. Now, a little bit about the Iowa Hawkeyes. They finished 10-3 last year, had a very, very nice season. All three of those losses came by a touchdown or less. So, when you look at a team year to year, when you see those three close losses, it likely means that Iowa, they may have been a little bit better than that 10-3 record indicated. They were 6-3 in Big Ten play. They finished up their season on a strong note with a 49-24 win over USC in the Holiday Bowl. Entering the offseason, they were ranked 15th in the final AP poll. They are led by four-time former Big Ten Coach of the Year, Kirk Ferentz. He is in his 22nd year in Iowa City and is now the longest tenured head coach in the FBS. The staff has a ton of continuity. His son, Brian Ferentz, is the offensive coordinator now in his fourth year. Been with the program since 2012 and really just continues to be that Iowa offensive focus that they've always had of running the ball, hitting you with play action, and getting effective first downs over and over again. On the defensive side, Phil Parker has been with the program for 20 years now. He is in his ninth year as the defensive coordinator in Iowa City. They are known for their tough, hard-nosed defense that doesn't make anything easy on opposing offenses. You see this level of continuity in very few programs where the head coach has been there for so long and the assistants stick with him. This is why Iowa is so consistently solid in the Big Ten West. They don't have down seasons often, and they haven't missed a bowl game since 2012. That was a year where Purdue went up to Iowa City. A last-second field goal kept Purdue's bowl game hopes alive in what proved to be Danny Hope's final season as a Boilermaker. Last year, Purdue went up to Iowa City and fell short against the Hawkeyes 26-20. The score was a little bit closer than the game indicated as a Jack Plummer to Payne Durham touchdown late in the game cut the score to a 6-point game, but anyone who watched would tell you that Iowa was in very strong control of that game from the opening kick. And, it really showed they were the stronger team. Purdue really struggled to do anything productive against them. Despite last year's loss, however, Purdue has won two of the last three against Iowa. In 2017, Jeff Brom's first season, Purdue kept their bowl game hopes alive with a 4-6 record, getting a win up in Iowa City, 24-15. Anthony Mahungu had a career day up there with a couple of touchdown receptions from Elijah Sindelar. In the following year, in 2018, Purdue took down the Hawkeyes in a high-scoring 38-36 affair in West Lafayette. Similar to the game a year before, Terry Wright had his turn at a career day receiving 6 receptions for well over 100 yards and 3 touchdown scores for him. And, of course, last year, the Hawkeyes were victorious. Now, a little bit about Purdue as we enter this Week 1 matchup. Purdue struggled to a 4-8 season a year ago. They were ravished by injuries. You'll remember back to, Lorenzo Neal and Marcus Bailey missing the majority and all of the season on defense last year. And then against Minnesota in just the 4th game of the season, Elijah Sindelar and Rondale Moore both suffering season-ending injuries on the same play, something you don't see very often, to say the least. Purdue does have an 0-3 record in season openers under Jeff Brom. 2017, Purdue was defeated in Lucas Oil Stadium against Louisville. 2018, Northwestern came into Ross-Ade Stadium for the ESPN Thursday night season kickoff and took down the Boilermakers. And then finally last year on a Friday night in Reno, Nevada, the Wolfpack took down Purdue in a big fourth quarter comeback, capped off by a 56-yard game-winning field goal. The last time Purdue went 1-0, you go back to 2016, before I was even a student at Purdue. Daryl Hazel was still the coach at Purdue, and they took down a weak Eastern Kentucky squad 45-24. Purdue was led by a big game from running back Markel Jones, and Purdue did not stay undefeated long as they lost the next week. As I discussed on Boilers and Beyond here on Monday, Purdue will be without head coach Jeff Brom this weekend. Brom tested positive for COVID-19. It was first discovered via an antigen test on Sunday, and the test on Monday came back positive. Brom will be forced to isolate for 10 days. He will not be at practice at all this week. Nothing will not be in Ross-Ade Stadium on Saturday at all. He'll be eligible to return to practice mid-next week after those 10 days have expired, and should be able to coach for Purdue against Illinois next weekend. It is worth noting, Purdue Athletic Director Mike Babinski revealed today that he has applied for a waiver from the Big Ten, which would allow Jeff Brom to have contact with the press box during the game. Under NCAA rules, head coaches are not allowed to have contact with anyone inside the stadium during a game if they are not physically at the game. Babinski is looking for a waiver that would allow Jeff Brom to be on the phone with one of Purdue's assistants up in the press box. Now, how much of an advantage does this really give Purdue if it's granted? I don't know. In what Mike Babinski said, I don't really think he's all that optimistic about Purdue's chances of getting this waiver, but, you know, it's worth a shot. It's not going to hurt anything. So all in all, I understand it. And for Purdue's sake, I hope Jeff Brom is able to at least talk to some of his coaches on Saturday and give his thoughts, as he will be watching from TV at home. We do wish Jeff Brom, I wish him my best. I've been in his position with COVID before. It is not any fun. So wishing him a fast and speedy recovery. Now, a little bit from other press conferences this week. Purdue did not release a depth chart ahead of the season opener. This is very like Jeff Brom. Purdue does not like to show its cards at all before they face off with an opponent. In the past, we have seen depth charts with multiple players listed at the same position as starters. I just really don't like to give much away. We did find out that Purdue has decided on a quarterback, but we don't know who it is. Jeff Brom said the competition was very good between sophomore Jack Plummer, junior Aiden O'Connell, and junior grad transfer Austin Burton. The coaching staff did say they are open to playing multiple quarterbacks in the season opener. Again, this doesn't surprise me. Purdue has shown a willingness to play multiple quarterbacks in the past. We saw it in 2017 for a good amount of the year, where Elijah Sindelar and David Blau would take turns as starting quarterbacks, coming in relief. At that point, David Blau became the starter and then got hurt. 2018, the same thing happened in the first couple games, where Blau and Sindelar each played some, and then an injury in week 2 cost Sindelar the rest of his season. Transfer defensive back DJ Johnson has been granted immediate eligibility by the Big Ten Conference. DJ Johnson originally played college football at Iowa, and this summer elected to enter his name in the transfer portal when allegations became very public regarding racism within the Iowa program, most notably with their strength and conditioning coach, Chris Doyle. He has since been removed from the program, But Johnson announced his transfer to Purdue very quickly, and you will see him early and often on Saturday. Johnson is a ready-to-play piece in the defensive backfield. You will see him wearing number 17 on Saturday. To get into Iowa's offense a little bit and really start our preview of this matchup, it starts with 3-year starting quarterback Nate Stanley is no longer a Hawkeye. Stanley graduated and is now a part of the practice squad for the Minnesota Vikings. Stanley left Iowa City as the second all-time leading passer in school history behind Hawkeye legend Chuck Long. Stanley was very solid. He was never a quarterback that was really going to wow you with his big plays and big ability, but he was really effective. He was excellent in the play action, and he didn't make a lot of mistakes. And you can never underestimate the importance of taking care of the football the way Stanley did. Now, replacing him is an interesting player in redshirt sophomore quarterback Spencer Petras. Petras was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2018 out from California. He redshirted in 2018, saw very limited action in games against Middle Tennessee and Rutgers last year, where he was 6 of 10 passing for just a total of 25 yards. Again, all in mop-up duty. It's really hard to learn a lot about a quarterback in that situation. From what I've gathered, Iowa fans and Iowa media seem to be very high on him. He is considered to have a really big arm, and you're going to see that in this offense. Although it's a bit of a slower, methodical offense, Iowa loves to run that ball early, get some short passes going, and that's when they hit you with the big deep ball that changes the game. Petras will likely have more of an ability in that area than Nate Stanley did. Looking elsewhere on the Iowa roster, they returned their 2 leading rushers from last season in sophomore Tyler Goodson and senior Mekhi Sargent. Goodson led the team in rushing last year as a freshman. He averaged 4.8 yards a carry and found the end zone 5 times. On the other part of their backfield there, Mekhi Sargent began his college career at Iowa Western Community College before transferring to Kirk Ferentz's Hawkeyes. He's been a very big part of the offense for 2 years now. That's a huge deal. We're looking at a season now where there isn't a ton of continuity. There isn't a ton of preseason full 11-on-11 practice. So Sargent's return is very big for Iowa. He did see his touches decrease a little bit last year, but he still put together a real nice season, had over 550 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was Iowa's leading rusher in the Purdue game last year, where he had 13 carries for 68 yards. Both Goodson and Sargent are effective pass catchers out of the backfield. I think that's really going to help Petras settle in early with some of those short passes I was talking about and really prepare him to try to air it out and beat Purdue's secondary over the top. I think we're going to see more of Sargent than we did at the end of last season. By the end of last year, Goodson had really taken the bulk of the carries for the Hawkeyes. I think we're going to see them move a little bit towards more of a 50-50 split. I think you may see 15 carries for Goodson, 10 carries for Sargent. But I think Iowa is going to try to run the ball early. And, this is such a good running game. It's what Iowa's identity is. And we're going to continue to see that on Saturday. Now, much like Purdue, Iowa is led by a pair of really good wide receivers. I don't think Iowa's get enough credit, though. They have a very strong receiving core, and diving into it now, they're led by a pair of talented seniors in Emir Smith-Marset and Brandon Smith. Now, Emir Smith-Marset, in my opinion, may be the most underrated player in all of the Big Ten. He led the team in receiving a year ago, had 722 yards and 5 touchdowns receiving. He also ran the ball 11 times for 110 yards. The guy is a true speed demon. He is all over the field. He's going to burn Purdue deep if they're not careful. He had a 32-yard reception against Purdue last year, and he's going to look for more of those big plays with a big play quarterback in Spencer Petras under center. He is joined by his teammate and classmate, Brandon Smith, who played in only 7 games a year ago before an injury took the rest of his season. Nonetheless, he was putting together a really nice junior campaign before he got hurt. 37 receptions, over 400 yards, and 5 touchdowns in just 7 games. Purdue really, really struggled to contain him last year when he caught 9 passes for over 100 yards. If I had to compare him, I would maybe compare him to David Bell a little bit. He has a similar frame where he can play physical with defensive backs, but also he's quick enough to go beat guys off the line and make big plays vertically. I know there's a lot of attention given to Big Ten wide receivers, particularly Rondale Moore of Purdue and Rashad Bateman of Minnesota. And I think that's warranted. They're both excellent players, but there needs to be more attention given to Iowa City because Smith Marset and Smith are fantastic, fantastic receivers. In addition to those two, though, Iowa has a good slot option in sophomore Nico Reganey. He actually led the team in receptions last year with 46 grabs. He's a really cool story. Reganey was not a highly recruited prospect out of high school, went to a prep school for a year to try to get the eyes of some bigger programs, and Kirk Ferentz got a very good one in Nico Reganey. He's going to do some good things for Iowa. He is lethal in the short passing game, very reliable, has great hands, and Purdue's going to have to stop him underneath because those short passes can turn into big games very, very quickly. Now, as everyone knows, Iowa has produced some fantastic tight ends under Kirk Ferentz. We've seen Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson go in the first round a couple years ago. We see George Kittle putting up huge numbers out in San Francisco. And this year, they bring back their top 2 tight ends from a year ago in sophomores Tyrone Tracy and Sam Laporta. Tracy showed some serious potential, in my opinion, last year as a pass catcher. He finished second on the team in receiving yards behind Smith Marset and 4th on the team in receptions. He did have a slower game against Purdue last year with just 1 catch for 5 yards. But, if that last year's any indication, Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz are really going to try to get him involved in the offense this year because he's a guy who fits that Iowa role of a solid tight end. He's joined by his classmate, Sam Laporta, a big 250-pound tight end standing 6'4". That's just a great blocking tight end frame, and that's what Iowa loves to have. He is a threat in the receiving game. 15 catches last year as a true freshman. I don't think he's quite as skilled in the receiving game as Tyrone Tracy, but, Iowa likes to go with 2 tight end sets a lot, certainly more so than Purdue does, and you're going to see these 2 on the field quite a bit. In addition to that tight end offense, the offensive line is the pride of the Hawkeye State. They're going to have another good offensive line again this year. Now, they did lose first-round draft pick Tristan Wirfs to the NFL, now a starter in Tampa Bay, but I really think they'll reload pretty well despite losing him. Similarly to Purdue, they're going to be led by their anchor at left tackle. For the Hawkeyes, it will be Alaric Jackson, a senior who is very strong out on the blind side there to protect Petras. And on the other side of him at right tackle, they will have Indiana graduate transfer and Lafayette native Coy Cronk. He was a graduate transfer this offseason. Purdue was very interested, though from Cronk's media availability, I think his time at Indiana really persuaded him to not come to West Lafayette. They do return their center from last season, which in my opinion is really important in week 1, especially this year for Iowa as they have a brand new quarterback. That center quarterback continuity is huge. It may be a little less important now that there are no fans in the stands for an away game, but with that center coming back, I think you really think well about that, and the Hawkeyes should be in good shape there. If there is a weakness up front for Iowa, and I really don't know that I think there is, it's those two guard spots where Iowa replaces guys who graduated, who had experience starting at guard for them. Iowa's just such a machine on the offensive line that I never think Kirk Ferentz is going to have a problem replacing his linemen. So I'm not too worried there. I think Iowa's going to have a very good group again this year, and I just really don't see this being a problem at all. The offense should be a solid group, and Purdue's defense is going to have to be ready to play and make some big plays on Saturday to keep them in check. On the other side of the ball, Iowa had a fantastic defense last year. They just allowed 14 points a game, only 308 total yards per game. Only 5 starters returned from that group this year, which is slightly concerning. They have to replace standout defensive end A.J. Epinesa, as well as 2 second-team all-conference defensive backs. They do also lose their leading tackler in linebacker Christian Welch. That's a lot to lose, especially with Epinesa starting on the defensive line here. They're old. They will go with 3 seniors and a junior to start on the defensive line. But, they only have one guy who's really proven, and that's defensive end Chauncey Golston. He recorded 47 tackles a year ago. 6.5 of those were for a loss. But besides him, I'm really not all that thrilled with what they have. It's good to have old guys up there. You have big, strong guys who've practiced a lot, but this isn't a group who's made a ton of starts, and I think that's going to be really important now as we get into a season with a very abbreviated offseason. That trend continues in the linebacking core. They run a base 4-3. They kind of always have underneath Kirk Ferentz and their defensive coordinator, but they only have one returning starter. That is weak side linebacker Nick Neiman. He'll be joined in that starting group by senior Barrington Wade and sophomore Jack Campbell. These are going to be the guys that Purdue really tries to target when they get mismatches in coverage, and Purdue is going to have to find ways to prevent the linebackers from coming in and making big stops in the run game. As I mentioned, Iowa's top 2 defensive backs have graduated, and DJ Johnson did play a role for Iowa last year. He is no longer with the program, so they will be led by senior corner Matt Hankins, the most talented player in their secondary. He may receive the unenviable task, however, of covering Purdue's Rondale Moore. Opposite him will be Riley Moss at the other corner spot. Moss has made 6 starts in the last 2 seasons, and he may get David Bell. Back at safety, you will see junior Jack Corner. He made a lot of starts for Iowa a year ago, has played a lot of football. I like him as a player quite a bit. He'll be trying to play center field and keeping Purdue from beating them downfield on go routes and deep crossing patterns. He'll be joined back there by Dane Belton. Only has made 4 career starts for the Hawkeyes. Not really sure what he's going to bring to the table. He does have the ability to come in and play the slot corner spot, which I think you'll see quite a bit as Purdue loves their 3 wide receiver, 4 wide receiver sets. This is a fairly inexperienced secondary, and Purdue loves to throw the ball. This is where Purdue can attack. I think they will do so early, and you're going to have to see where Purdue finds a mismatch. Jeff Brom loves to find a mismatch and exploit it. Purdue has a ton of talented receivers on this roster who they're going to be throwing out there to try to see if they can catch the Hawkeyes off guard. Purdue averages 296 passing yards per game in the 3 matchups between Brom and Ferentz. I think you will see a number similar to that on Saturday. Games can be won and lost, however, with special teams. and Iowa is notoriously strong with this group. They returned their senior kicker, Keith Duncan, who broke a Big Ten record last year with 29 made field goals. He was 29 of 34, absolutely money from 40 plus, too. He's as close to automatic as you're going to find. I think he is really, really talented, and he would be my pick for first team all conference at kicker. They have Amir Smith-Marset, their talented wide receiver, back as a kick returner as well. Smith-Marset is fantastic. He was the Big Ten Return Specialist of the Year in 2018. Last year, he took 2 kickoffs all the way back to the house, including one of 98 yards. He is the all-time leader in the conference for average kickoff return yards per return. Purdue is going to have their hands full. It's going to be very important for J.D. Dellinger, who was able to get touchbacks on roughly 2/3 of his kickoffs a year ago, to continue to do that on Saturday. The last thing Purdue wants is Amir Smith-Marset coming out of the end zone and looking to make a big play. Nico Reganey, the very talented and sure-handed slot receiver, returns punts for the Hawkeyes. Very good at it, averaged around 10 yards per return last year. They do lose their punter, which is sometimes important. We saw that with Purdue some last year, where replacing Joe Shopper didn't necessarily go as smoothly as Jeff Brom had planned. But, this is a group that's not going to make a lot of mistakes. They have a Australian-style punter coming in. I think he'll be very effective. And Purdue is going to have to play very well on special teams to not get outclassed in this area. A couple keys to the game here before I get into my prediction. Purdue's run game is very important. And I think I've been very open about this on the podcast. Purdue in 2019 averaged just 83 rushing yards per game. That was last in the Big Ten by roughly 40 yards. At only 2.9 yards per carry, you're just not going to beat teams doing that. Purdue has to be better there, and that starts on Saturday against Iowa. Against Iowa last year, Purdue ran the ball 18 times for a total of 33 yards. The longest rushing play was a 9-yard carry by King Doru. That's not going to cut it for Purdue on Saturday. Purdue will have both sophomore King Doru and junior Xander Horvath back in the backfield to run the ball. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rondale Moore in motion quite a bit to try to help activate that running game. Purdue only had 9 rushing touchdowns last year. If Purdue could find the end zone once on the ground, that would be a fantastic start. I would be really excited for that. It'll set the tone and give that running back group some confidence as they go into this 9-game season. I think if Purdue has 100-plus rushing yards here, that's a really, really good start, and that's going to really make Purdue's offense a little bit more dynamic in this game. Iowa's predicated on stopping the run and making teams throw the ball. I think Purdue's going to have an improved offensive line, and with some more game experience for Doru and Horvath, let's see if Purdue can't cross 100 yards rushing on Saturday. They only did that in 5 of the 12 games a year ago. 3 and outs are going to be incredibly important to watch for Purdue this weekend. On both sides of the ball for Purdue, it's vital to force 3 and outs on defense and not take them on offense. Iowa's offense is not built like Purdue's. Iowa's very predicated on 4-5-yard gains in the run and short passing game to really tire out a defense and force the opposing coach to make substitutions. And then once those reserves come in the game, that's when you see those play action bombs to their talented receivers. And, Purdue can't afford that. On the other side, Purdue can't have 3 and outs on offense because Iowa is going to wear out the Purdue defense. You want your best players to be on the field. You need George Karlaftis. You need Lorenzo Neal. You need Anthony Watts. You need all these guys ready to go up front. Purdue's not going to have the 6, 7, 8-minute scoring drives that Iowa does, but, Purdue's got to move the chains. Purdue needs to run a lot of plays. And I think you'll see them really see the benefits of that with their defense on the sideline resting. If Purdue does go 3 and out quite a bit, you're going to see Iowa really open up the playbook and attack a worn-out defense the way Kirk Ferentz is known for doing. Finally, my last key to the game is bend, don't break. This is a Purdue defense that has some more speed, has some more strength than we're kind of used to. I think they have the potential to make some big plays. However, you can't expect an overnight transformation from a defense that was one of the Big Ten's worst a season ago. Yes, new defensive coordinator Bob Diaco. I think he was a great hire. I think he's going to do really good things here at Purdue over the next few years, but this isn't going to be a worst to first defense overnight. Iowa's going to put together scoring drives. The key for Purdue is to bend and not break. Keep those drives resulting in Keith Duncan field goals. Don't let them end in touchdowns. If Purdue can force a lot of drives to end in 3 rather than 6, I think Purdue is in really good shape for this game. It's that time where I make my first prediction of the year for the Boilermakers. Purdue comes in as 3.5-point underdogs, and the over-under is set at 53.5. Now, look, this is a tough game to predict because both teams have a lot of unknowns. Iowa's replacing a lot of talent from last year's team, and Purdue is without their head coach, one of the most high-paid and one of the most talented offensive minds in all of college football. I'm going to go optimistic here. Purdue 34, Iowa 30. Rondale Moore and David Bell are going to be too much for the Iowa secondary. Purdue's defense is going to rise up at the right time and get a stop. Purdue's going to win this one 34-30, and it's going to be the first 1-0 start since 2016 for the Boilermakers. Now, across the Big Ten, it is a packed week as all 14 schools are back in action for the first time. We'll break down each game very, very briefly here. Friday night, it begins with Illinois heading up north to take on the reigning Big Ten West champion Wisconsin Badgers. Last year, Illinois stunned an undefeated Wisconsin team in Champaign 24-23. Wisconsin got some bad news early on in camp when their returning quarterback, Jack Cohen, broke his foot and is out indefinitely. They will turn to very highly touted freshman quarterback Graham Mertz, who redshirted a season ago. This is an 8 o'clock kickoff Friday night on the Big Ten Network. Wisconsin is 18.5-point favorites there. Saturday at noon, Nebraska heads to Columbus to take on the top 5 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. That is the big noon kickoff game on Fox. Justin Fields and the Buckeyes are looking to repeat as Big Ten champions and get themselves back in the college football playoff, where their season ended in heartbreaking fashion to Clemson last year. Meanwhile, is this the year Nebraska finally gets things going under Scott Frost? They have had disappointing seasons in each of his first 2, especially last year where there was a lot of preseason hype just for them to go 5-7. Frost did announce that junior quarterback Adrian Martinez will be the opening day starter there. Ohio State's the best team in the conference. This game is not going to be all that close, and you can see that in the 25.5-point spread here in Columbus. Also at noon, 2 new head coaches face off as Rutgers travels to Michigan State on Big Ten Network. Greg Schiano is back in Piscataway for his second term as Rutgers head coach. Meanwhile, Mel Tucker was given $5 million a year to get him out of Boulder after just 1 year as the head coach of Colorado. I'm not very high on either of these teams coming into the season. Michigan State loses a ton of talent on their defense. Meanwhile, Rutgers has lost 21 consecutive Big Ten games. Michigan State is 13.5-point favorites in that one. Alongside Purdue Saturday at 3:30 on Fox Sports 1, Penn State heads down to Bloomington to take on the Indiana Hoosiers. Both teams are looking to build off really strong seasons with a lot of talent coming back. Unfortunately for Penn State, it was revealed earlier this week that standout running back Journey Brown may miss the entire season with an undisclosed medical issue. Usually from my experience covering college football, that's not a good thing. That usually means it's a very serious medical condition. When it's undisclosed, that's pretty serious. So wishing our best to Journey Brown there. IU may be at the best point they've ever been in their program's history. This is a big game for both teams. Penn State can't afford a loss to Indiana. Penn State is looking to join Ohio State as the beasts of the East, whereas Indiana really finally needs to take that next step and get a big win. They haven't done so in so long, and they've been so close. They would love to break through here. Penn State is a 6.5-point favorite. Finally, the nightcap in the Big Ten, you have a doubleheader. First on the Big Ten Network, you have Maryland and Northwestern. I don't understand why this is a night game one bit, but year 2 of the Mike Locksley era in Maryland looks to be better than year 1. They struggled last year to a 3-9 finish. There are a lot of questions for an offense that really struggled. They may be led by Alabama transfer quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa, the younger brother of Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. He has not been officially named the starter yet by head coach Mike Locksley, but rumors do seem to be trending in that way. So look for him out there. Meanwhile, Northwestern struggled to a rare 3-9 season in 2019. I think they're going to be the most improved team in the conference this year. It's a weird spot here. Northwestern tends to struggle early on in the season under Pat Fitzgerald. They don't have the time for that this year. This is a short 9-game season. You already need to be in midseason form in week 1. Northwestern is 11.5-point favorites at Ryan Field for that one. Finally, the game of the day in college football. Michigan heads to Minnesota on ABC, a 7:30 kickoff. ESPN's College Game Day will be there in the morning. Expect a big fanfare for that. Unfortunately, it will not be in person. But Minnesota fans are going to be excited as they come off an 11-2 season a year ago that concluded with a big win in the Outback Bowl over Auburn. They get almost their entire offense back. Meanwhile, Michigan's looking to take that next step under Jim Harbaugh. They've been very close a couple of times, but they have not been able to establish themselves as that very strong program in the East that they want to be. They will turn to Joe Milton at quarterback, who will be making his first career start. Michigan is 3.5-point road favorites there. Now, that's all I have for the show today. I hope all of you enjoy the game on Saturday. There are a lot of great places in the Lafayette area to watch the game, whether you be watching from Lafayette, Indianapolis, anywhere in the Midwest or across the country. I hope this preview has helped you get ready for the Boilermakers and Hawkeyes. Remember to give us a follow on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. I will be live tweeting the entire game on Saturday with my first thoughts and reactions. Remember, we will be live on RootShare every week, so make sure you get signed up there at rootshare.io. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, so be sure to subscribe and download. That way you do not miss an episode. We will be back next time to recap Purdue versus Iowa, so make sure to catch that. Until then, enjoy Purdue football.